There are moments in life when everything you used to understand begins to dissolve. The world stops speaking to you in the languages you once knew. What once made sense now feels hollow, like an echo in an empty room. Words no longer suffice. The gestures that used to convey meaning lose their power. The familiar ways of relating to the world no longer move you as they once did. Carl Jung spoke of symbols as the true language of the soul. And when that symbolic language begins to rise to the surface, everything else turns into noise. You're not losing connection with the world. You're learning to connect from a different space, a different frequency, a different code altogether. You begin to sense that words no longer reach you, neither to express yourself nor to understand others. You try to articulate what you feel, but each sentence feels like a leak. Something important escapes every time you speak. What lives inside you is so vast, so subtle, so deeply intimate that language fails to contain it. And when others speak to you, you sense the gap. What they say doesn't always match what they truly feel. It's not that they are lying, but rather the shared language has become too limited for the depth of perception you now inhabit. You find yourself understanding more through silence than through conversation. A look, a breath, a fleeting gesture carries more weight than 100 well-constructed sentences. And you're not trying to make it happen, it just does. Your body picks up on it before your mind can even process. It's as if a more ancient part of you knows how to read the unsaid, how to hear what carries no sound. This apparent disconnect from external language is not a loss. It's the beginning of a more authentic form of communication, one that doesn't require translation, one that comes from the core. Even when it feels like no one truly understands you, you know you're not disconnected. You're starting to connect on a different plane, the plane where souls recognize each other without a single word. And the sensation that words are no longer enough doesn't leave you in silence because you're empty, but because you're overflowing. What you feel is too deep, too complex, too nuanced for ordinary speech. You try to name it, to explain it, but the moment you do, something essential slips away. It's as if words were too small a container for the vibration that now lives within you. And that's when the new language begins to reveal itself, a language that doesn't rely on grammar, but on resonance, one that isn't spoken from the throat, but emitted from your energy field, a language that isn't meant to convince, but simply to reflect. You realize that a shared silence can be more intimate than 1,000 confessions, that a subtle gesture can open more space for trust than hours of conversation, that the energy someone carries speaks more honestly than any story they could ever tell. Carl Jung believed that every true psychological transformation involves a shedding of the old languages of the self. And you are exactly there, releasing the linguistic structures you once relied on, stepping into a new way of connecting that doesn't come from outside, but rises from within. It feels like you've remembered something ancient, that before you could speak, you already knew how to communicate with the world, with a glance, with a sensation, with your frequency. And while it may have been confusing at first, you felt awkward, misplaced, disconnected. Now it's beginning to make sense. It was never disconnection. It was transition. You are crossing the threshold between the known form of expression and the vibrational truth of feeling. You no longer need to explain everything you feel, because when you are in the presence of someone who has also begun to awaken to this new language, there's nothing to explain. You simply feel. You recognize. Even in old relationships, you've noticed the shift. Some connections now feel exhausting, while others are made of silence that feels like home. You've learned to tell the difference between those who listen with their minds and those who listen with their soul. And now, you only open yourself fully to the latter, because you're not looking for mental understanding, you're seeking resonance. This new language doesn't argue, doesn't need responses, doesn't aim to be right. It simply emits a frequency, one that touches without touch, one that guides without direction, one that transforms without a single word. And you have begun to embody that frequency. You've begun to hold it, to radiate it. And even if it still feels unfamiliar, even if you sometimes feel alone in this new mode of communication, you know, deep in your bones, that it's more truthful than anything you've ever known. Because in this new language, you don't exchange ideas, you share vibrations. And when the vibration is coherent, everything else falls into place naturally. As this new way of communicating settles into your being, something even deeper emerges. You're no longer trying to be understood. You want to be felt. And that changes everything. Understanding is a mental task. It's limited. It's fragmented. Feeling, on the other hand, is total. It happens in the body, in the soul, in the energy. You, who once felt the need to explain every emotion, justify every choice, translate every thought into digestible words for others, now simply want to be, without needing to label what you are. You no longer need to form perfect phrases. Your presence alone is enough. And that presence isn't passive. It's a vibration that speaks even when your lips are closed. It is a form of communication that doesn't need volume, doesn't aim to impress, doesn't try to persuade. It is pure coherence. It is presence becoming language. You begin to notice how, in certain situations, your body knows what to do before your mind does. It knows when to approach, when to withdraw, when to open, when to close. Not because you learned these signs in a book, but because you are remembering a way of communicating that comes from the soul. It's not something you study. It's something you awaken. It's not something you force. It's something you allow. And as this awakening unfolds, you start perceiving others in new ways. Words no longer confuse you. You see the mismatch between what someone says and what they actually radiate. You no longer get lost in a kind tone if the vibration underneath is evasive. You're no longer seduced by narratives if the person's energy field is closed. That clarity doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. And from that honesty, you now choose what to connect with and what to release. Not out of judgment, but out of resonance. You no longer make an effort to maintain connections where the vibrational language is absent. Because now you know, when two souls no longer speak the same energetic language, the language you now recognize, any attempt at connection becomes exhaustion. Carl Jung said that the soul transforms through symbols, not definitions. And you have begun to read symbols, not with your eyes, but with your energy field. Symbols are everywhere, in subtle pauses, in uncomfortable silences, in changes of tone, in unexpected distance. You no longer need to interpret everything. You just feel it. And from that feeling, you choose. You now speak to the world the way you would speak to a river, listening to its currents, not its surface. To those who still communicate from the surface, you might seem strange, unpredictable, maybe even incomprehensible. But that's okay, because you didn't come here to be understood in the old language. You came to embody a new one that is not spoken, but vibrated, one that is not written, but felt. And you now are part of that new language, not as a student, as a channel. Sign number 2. You are starting to relate to others in an entirely new way, not based on what they say, but on what their energy communicates. Something within you has shifted. You no longer evaluate people solely by their words or by how well they present themselves on the surface. What now matters most to you is the resonance, the vibrational frequency they carry, the invisible truth that their presence either sustains or contradicts. It has become increasingly difficult for you to maintain connections that are based only on appearances or polite conversation. You've realized that your relationships have become more selective, not because you're judging others, but because your energetic needs are evolving. There's a deeper necessity guiding you now, and it doesn't come from the intellect. It's rooted in your energy field, in your soul. You've found that no matter how well someone speaks, no matter how kind they seem, if their energy does not align with yours, the connection simply does not flow, and you can't force it. In the past, maybe you stayed out of obligation, out of habit, or to avoid making others uncomfortable. You might have tolerated situations that weren't aligned with your essence, just to be polite or keep the peace. But now, something within you naturally resists those dynamics. It's not that you're trying to distance yourself. It's that your nervous system, your energetic body, can no longer tolerate what lacks coherence. There's an intuitive part of you that closes off when the presence of another doesn't feel grounded in authenticity, peace, or truth. It's not a mental decision. It's not strategy. It's your soul responding at a level much deeper than logic. Carl Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the integration of the total self, and it feels like you've stepped into that process. You're beginning to understand that real unity, real connection, can only happen when there's truth on both sides. You're starting to see that the most profound conversations don't always require words, that sometimes a single, serene glance can carry more meaning than 1,000 well-constructed sentences. You're drawn more to the presence of someone who can sit in silence with you than to those who talk endlessly just to avoid their own discomfort. You are now deeply moved by clean, honest energy, far more than by rehearsed speeches or perfect expressions, and this has created a natural purification of your connections. You can no longer thrive in spaces where the connection is only mental, where emotions are faked or forced, or where interactions remain on the surface. Instead, you're choosing to be around people who speak through their energy, whose presence confirms the truth of their words. You now require congruence between speech, action, and vibration. You're no longer willing to share your presence in places where you can't also bring your soul, your body, and your entire energetic self. You're no longer chasing intensity, you're seeking truth. And real truth doesn't need noise to be heard. It only needs to be felt. This shift in how you relate to others isn't coming from a desire to be spiritually advanced or from any external pressure to evolve. It's happening naturally. It's like a forgotten part of yourself has awakened and is now guiding you back to what's real. You've felt it in your own body, in your skin. You can't pretend anymore. You can't stay where there is no authenticity, not because you're rejecting anyone, but because your energy field simply doesn't collaborate with anything disconnected from its own truth. You've come to see that the language of energy is raw and honest. It can't be rehearsed. It can't be photoshopped. It can't be manipulated. And now, your soul, tuned into this new frequency, can no longer be deceived by appearances. You've begun to see, with quiet clarity, who carries their light from within, and who only projects it outward for others to see. You've noticed that relationships that once felt intense now feel noisy. People who once gave you comfort now leave you feeling drained. Externally, nothing may have changed, but internally, your frequency has transformed, and that shift is restructuring your relationships in ways you can't ignore. You no longer force conversations that lack soul. You no longer fill silences out of politeness. You no longer pretend to care just to seem presentable. You've learned to honor the silence that tells the truth over the words that try to hide it. You now crave company that allows you to breathe peacefully, even if no words are exchanged, rather than being overwhelmed by empty stimulation. And yes, that may have led you to create distance from people you still love. But you've come to realize that it's not emotional distance, it's vibrational realignment. You haven't stopped loving. You've just begun loving from a different space, a subtler, freer, more conscious frequency, one that can't be forced, one that can't be faked. Even in new encounters, you've started to notice something remarkable. Before your mind even forms an opinion, your energy scans the room. Within seconds, you sense whether it's safe to open up or if you need to protect yourself. And again, this isn't about judgment. It's about vibrational recognition. You no longer offer yourself from a sense of duty. You only offer yourself when there's resonance, when something inside you says yes without hesitation. Carl Jung also spoke of the importance of living from the whole self, not just from the mask. And that's what you're doing now. You're no longer interested in engaging with personas or projections. You respond only to that which vibrates from the soul. And this way of connecting doesn't have a name. It's quiet. It's peaceful. It doesn't require conflict or explanation. It just is. Because now you understand something you didn't fully grasp before. True connection is born when two souls recognize each other in silence. And anything that doesn't arise from that sacred space, it isn't connection. It's just noise. Sign 3. Your body has started to react as another channel of the subtle language you're learning. You no longer feel just with your soul. You feel with your chest, your skin, your stomach, your breath. You've noticed how your body responds before your thoughts, as if it's speaking in physical codes you never learned but instinctively understand. A sudden tension, a warmth in the chest, a brief shiver, an unexpected expansion. These no longer feel like symptoms, but messages. You're no longer disconnected from your body. You're more deeply inside it. And in this new way of inhabiting yourself, your body has become an instrument that reads what cannot be seen. Carl Jung understood that the unconscious expresses itself through the body. And now you're beginning to realize that this language doesn't need rational translation, just presence. You felt how some people drain you without speaking a word, how certain places make you sleepy or close your chest, and at the same time, how other presences soothe you just by being near, how some spaces open your breath as if bringing you back home. Maybe before, you ignored it. You thought it was just tiredness, anxiety, coincidence. But now you know better. Now you know it's your body saying yes or no, and you listen because your body doesn't lie. And this new sensitivity hasn't made you fragile. It doesn't lie. This new sensitivity hasn't made you fragile. It has made you coherent. You no longer force yourself to stay in places your body wants to leave. You no longer normalize tensions you used to tolerate out of politeness. You no longer sacrifice your well-being just to please others. You've come to understand that your body isn't a container. It's a channel. And every sensation isn't an obstacle. It's a guide. And even though this language can be uncomfortable, because it makes you leave spaces your mind wanted to stay, you follow it. Because you know that when you listen, something aligns within. And when you ignore yourself, everything falls out of order. You're starting to understand that your body, in its subtlest form, also connects you to the invisible. And that level of connection can no longer be shut off. And that connection with your body isn't just physical, it's vibrational. You no longer inhabit it as mere moving matter, but as a tool of energetic precision. Every pulse, every micro shift, every sensation has become a silent form of wisdom. And that wisdom doesn't need explanation. It just needs to be respected. You've begun to see how your body anticipates things. It knows before you do whether a place will uplift or crush you. It knows whether a conversation will nourish or exhaust you. It knows whether a glance is sincere or hiding something. And instead of ignoring it, you've learned to trust those signals that once seemed subtle, but are now your primary language. Sometimes you stop midway and don't know why. Your chest just tightens, or tension in your neck tells you not to go that way, or you feel instant relief walking into a house, even if you can't explain it. And then you know, not because you think, but because you feel. Carl Jung said that body, soul, and psyche are not separate. And now you're living that truth, vividly, for real, in the flesh. Your body is now the first receptor of the energy around you. You no longer need arguments to leave a place that makes your body tense. You don't need justifications to stay where your body expands. How certain tones of voice unsettle you, how certain pauses calm you, how certain silences feel like home. And it's not coincidence. It's vibration translated into physiology. It's energy translated into sensation. It's your soul speaking through your body, guiding you when words fall short. And that guidance, though invisible, is precise. It's intimate. It's accurate. So much so that you no longer need anyone else to understand. If your body tells you, you believe it. If your body feels it, you honor it. If your body pulls away, you don't force it. You've stopped hurting yourself to please others. You've stopped ignoring yourself to fit in. You've stopped betraying yourself just to belong. Now you know that your body doesn't just hold you. It protects you, guides you, takes care of you. And that relationship, that sacred bond between you and your body, has become one of the purest forms of connection you've ever known. Because before, you searched for answers outside. Now, you feel them within. And that change has changed everything. Sign 4. You've become more attuned to symbols, signs, and subtle messages that you used to overlook. You start noticing patterns, coincidences, repeated phrases, numbers that follow you, and synchronistic events that defy logical explanation. It's not obsession. It's not superstition. It's sensitivity. Your energetic field tuning into a new language that life has started using to speak to you. Carl Jung called it synchronicity, events with no apparent causal connection, but with such precise meaning that they can't be ignored. You've begun to experience that precision, not as fantasy, but as a tangible way in which the universe responds when you're ready to hear from a different level. You encounter the right words at the right time, songs that feel like they were written for you, random meetings that trigger deep inner shifts, and symbols appearing just as you were about to give up. And you can no longer call that chance because something within you knows it isn't. You've realized that life doesn't only express itself through external events. It also speaks through inner impressions, And often, that connection occurs through the invisible, the vibrational, the symbolic. You no longer seek signs to validate your mind. You recognize them through vibration. Even in chaos, you've learned to sense subtle clues that tell you when to move forward, when to pause, when to let go. No one tells you. You don't decide it rationally. You just feel it. And when you follow that feeling, everything aligns. The more you embrace this symbolic sensitivity, the more present you become. You no longer live on autopilot. You're not disconnected. You're attentive, not from a controlling mind, but from a listening soul. And that has completely transformed the way you exist in the world. Your perception of symbols isn't driven by a desperate search for meaning. It's a vibrational openness that's settled in you without force. You're not interpreting from need. You're recognizing from the soul. What once seemed like mere coincidence now feels like a personal, intimate language meant only for you. And you don't need to fully understand what each sign means, because you've realized not all signs come as riddles to be solved. Some simply arrive to support you, to remind you, to silently walk with you, to say, you're on the path, even if you don't know where it leads. You've stopped begging life to speak loudly. Now you hear its whispers. You read between the lines. You see the invisible. Sometimes it's a word overheard while walking by, a phrase on a sign just when your heart was about to shut down, an animal crossing your path right before an important decision, a book someone casually suggests, unaware that inside it lies exactly what your soul had been searching for. And you no longer dismiss it as random. You take it as sacred communication. Carl Jung understood that symbols are a gateway to what the mind cannot fully grasp. You've begun to live in that symbolic realm, where everything has a deeper echo, where the outer world reflects the inner, not to trap you in obsession, but to remind you that you're not separate from life's rhythm, that you're part of something wiser, softer, more accurate than any plan you could ever make. Even in moments of confusion, you've stopped asking for guidance out of desperation. You ask from presence, and something always shows up. Not always what you expected, but always what you needed. This way of connecting has replaced many of your old ways of praying, asking, or planning. You're no longer trying to control life's flow. You're learning to move with it. And in that dance, life speaks to you, in symbols, in synchronicities, in silences full of meaning. And you've remembered how to listen, without needing proof, without demanding guarantees, just from an open soul that recognizes when something is meant for you, even if you can't explain why. You've stopped searching for signs to confirm your plans. Instead, you let the signs reveal a path more honest than any your mind could invent. A path that isn't always easy, but it's real. And now you know how to feel when something is real. Not because you understand it, but because it resonates. Because it settles in you as if you've always known it. Because in some way, you already did. And as you open more to this symbolic language, you realize you're not just a receiver. You're a transmitter too. Your own energy begins to send signals to others, even when you say nothing, even when you're not aware of it. As though by fine-tuning your sensitivity to life's messages, you become part of the message yourself. And then you see it. You're not just reading the universe. You're in dialogue with it. Life no longer feels like a sequence of events happening to you. You feel it as a living field responding to your inner state. When you close off, the signals fade. When you open, they appear, as if they'd been waiting for you. Not because you force them, but because you allow them. And in that invisible dance, you begin trusting the subtle more than the certain, resonance more than rigid plans, inner guidance over external maps. Even on days that feel stuck, you sense movement inside, an intuition, a sudden memory, a feeling you can't explain, but that clearly shows you the way, and you follow it. Not with anxiety, but with a newfound softness, with the surrender that comes from knowing life doesn't need to shout to guide you. Sometimes it only takes a vibration. Carl Jung said, "Everything that deeply impacts us in the outer world has an archetypal root within, and you've started recognizing those roots. What you see outside is no longer foreign. It's symbol, it's mirror, it's echo, and the more honest you are with yourself, the louder that echo becomes. That's why when you disconnect from your truth, everything becomes blurry. The signs scatter, intuition dims, the path feels heavy. But when you return to yourself, to your center, everything realigns, like the whole world breathing in sync with you. You no longer live waiting for miracles. You live recognizing them, in the smallest details, in the inner rhythms, in the messages that come when your soul needs them, not your mind. And you've learned to know the difference. Now you understand you are not alone, not lost, not drifting. You're in constant dialogue with a greater intelligence, one that doesn't impose but whispers. And at last, you've remembered how to listen. Sign 5. You no longer feel the need to build authentic connections. They are simply recognized. You've stopped trying to make everything fit together. You're no longer interested in forcing bonds, in convincing others to understand you, or in reshaping yourself just to be liked or accepted. What you're drawn to now is something far more subtle, more intimate, something that cannot be explained or logically constructed. You search for a resonance that doesn't arise through effort, but rather appears spontaneously, in silence, in stillness, something that is not thought, but felt, a connection that does not require time to grow, because it does not come from time, it comes from the soul. And when that kind of connection happens, you know it, not because the other person says the right things, not because their opinions mirror your own. You know it because something within you aligns, effortlessly, because there is a vibration, an unspoken harmony that finds you, as if it had been searching for you just as long as you had been searching for it. Carl Jung once spoke of the collective unconscious, a shared space where souls touch beyond what our eyes can see, where truth travels without sound and understanding emerges without explanation. You've begun to experience these connections. They're not logical. They don't follow the usual rules of time or story, but they leave their mark on you, deeply. There are relationships you cannot explain how they began, yet they feel as if they've always been part of your life. Brief encounters that echo louder than years of history. Glances that don't need to be interpreted because they are instantly understood. And just as you've learned to welcome these connections, you've also learned to accept when that resonance simply isn't there. You no longer take it personally. It doesn't feel like rejection anymore. It's not something to mourn. It's just a quiet knowing that energy isn't flowing there. And that means there's no need to insist, because now you understand something profoundly simple. If you have to force the connection, then it's not a connection. It's a strategy. And you no longer live from strategies. You no longer operate from effort. You live from truth, from energy, from intuition. This new language of connection has taught you to love from freedom, not from need, to be present without suffocating, to hold without possessing, and to let go without creating drama. You've stopped craving relationships that look perfect. You've stopped idealizing partnerships that check boxes. You now seek what is real. And the truth, in this new language of the soul, doesn't require explanation. It only needs to be felt. This way of connecting, one that no longer strives to build through control, but rather recognizes through energy, has brought you a peace you didn't even realize you were missing. You no longer chase bonds that appeal only to reason, because now you understand that the most meaningful connections aren't understood. They are remembered. And when you remember, there's no doubt, no confusion, no inner debate, just certainty. But not the kind that comes from the mind, the kind that comes from the soul. A certainty that feels like something returning home. Not because the other person is just like you. Not because they give you everything you ever wanted. But because their energy doesn't compete, doesn't perform, doesn't pretend. And you, who have stopped negotiating your sensitivity, recognize it immediately. You don't need promises. You don't need a mapped-out future. You just need that vibrational honesty that makes the present moment enough. You've released the belief that relationships must be built through forced consistency or constant verbal validation. Now you know, when the energy is real, it doesn't require maintenance. It sustains itself, and when it isn't, no amount of effort can salvage it. Carl Jung also said that the meeting of two authentic people always activates something transformational. And you have started to experience those meetings. They're not always easy, they're not always comfortable, but they always bring you back to yourself. And you've learned to recognize when a cycle has come to an end. You no longer drag out what no longer vibrates. You no longer cling to what has become heavy. You no longer wait for someone to stay when their soul has already left, because you now understand what is real cannot be held. It must be honored. And when it leaves, you give thanks for what it was. Even solitude no longer feels like a void. Now it feels like a sacred place, a chamber of tuning, where you refine your own energy, preparing for the next connection, not to be just another noise in your life, but a shared melody. You've stopped searching for someone to complete you. Now, you long to share yourself with someone who has also found themselves. And if they haven't arrived yet, you don't fall into despair, because you trust that the language of life will bring together those who vibrate at the same frequency. At the exact moment, both are ready to truly listen, not with their ears, but with their hearts. That truth no longer demands explanations. It simply asks for coherence. Now, you connect with those who truly feel you, not those who try to interpret you, with those who listen without defending themselves, with those who are not afraid of silence, because they've come to understand that silence is also a profound form of love. This is the new kind of connection you're beginning to recognize. It's not hurried, it has no particular form, but when it arrives, it transforms everything. And now that you've felt this, now that these signs have begun to stir within you, you may finally understand. You are not disconnecting from the world. You are tuning yourself. You are learning to listen differently, to feel from a deeper place, to recognize a language that no one teaches, but that your soul has always known. Life has never stopped speaking to you. It has only changed the way it communicates. And you are finally ready to hear it. Thank you for allowing this message to vibrate within you. Thank you for holding on to your sensitivity, even when the world hasn't known how to name it. Thank you for recognizing that the invisible speaks too, and that you are beginning to understand its voice. If this message resonated with you, if something deep within you was touched by the truth, then I invite you to stay, to follow this path. A path where the soul remembers what the mind had long forgotten. Have you ever felt that something is shifting within you, even if you can't quite explain it? It's not just about the external world changing. It goes deeper than that. It's a subtle but powerful transformation that begins as a vibration inside you, a kind of inner pause between different versions of yourself. You can feel that you no longer fit into the mold of who you used to be. Yet, at the same time, the version of you that you are becoming hasn't fully arrived either. It's as if you're in a liminal space, suspended between what was and what is about to be. Outwardly, everything might seem the same. Life may appear to be moving as usual. But inside, within your heart and soul, there are signs, brief moments, sudden impulses, unexpected emotions. It's as though the universe is working silently, behind the scenes, gently reorganizing your path. It's not chaos, it's divine order. It's preparing to hand you something that your eyes can't yet see, but your spirit already senses. This process isn't about desiring more. It's not about craving or chasing. It's about becoming. It's about being prepared internally to hold what's coming. Because what's on its way is not small, it's immense, and it requires space, strength, and alignment. Without realizing it, you're becoming that space. You're being shaped to receive something greater than anything you've held before. The first signal, you may have started to feel a subtle distance from certain people, habits, or environments that once felt like home. But it's not rejection. It's not anger. There's no conflict or bitterness. Something within you has simply moved away. Silently, peacefully, without fanfare. It's as if your soul is walking ahead, whispering that it no longer belongs in places that don't resonate with your new frequency. And you can't force yourself to stay. You can't pretend anymore. You can't fake belonging where your spirit no longer feels alive. Even if your mind doesn't fully understand it, your heart accepts it with quiet grace. This isn't loss, it's release. You're not being left behind, you're being freed. Because the universe does not build new beginnings on foundations that are no longer true. To bring the new into your life, it must first create space. This detachment isn't impulsive, it's not rebellion, it's a silent retreat, natural, organic. You find that you no longer need to explain yourself. No dramatic exits, no justifications. Something simply feels complete. The chapter has ended. What once held you is now holding you back. What once filled you is now too heavy to carry. And instead of resisting, you're letting go. Not from logic, but from a soul-deep knowing. This sense of detachment might feel strange, even uncomfortable, but it isn't emptiness. It's preparation. You are being gently stripped of what cannot journey with you to your next level. Not because it was wrong, but because it has already fulfilled its role. You've stopped trying to fit into dynamics that no longer nourish you. Something deep within knows that something greater is coming. Something that cannot arrive if you're still holding on to the things that shrink you. And this kind of letting go doesn't make you colder, it makes you clearer. Your decisions begin to align with your truth. You start saying no without guilt. You walk away without drama. And you do it not from ego, but from inner wisdom. Your energy is changing. And it's not random. It's a message. It's preparation. The universe is not taking from you. It's aligning you. When you release what no longer resonates, You're saying, even without words, I'm ready. Ready for what's next, even if you can't name it yet. That silent gesture you make within, though invisible, moves unseen forces. Even if you don't yet understand why certain doors are closing, one day you'll realize they were never rejections, they were redirections. The space you are creating is precisely where something greater needed to enter. And here's the miracle. This inner release does not leave you feeling empty, but strangely at peace. It's as if, without meaning to, you've aligned yourself with a greater rhythm. As if what you're releasing isn't taking pieces of you, but letting go of outdated versions that no longer serve you. You're not losing anything essential. On the contrary, you are arriving at your essence. This entire process feels like a silent cleansing. People may drift away without conflict. Opportunities may fall through without clear reasons. Paths that once looked solid may vanish overnight. And yet, instead of clinging, you exhale. And that breath, so small, so quiet, is a profound sign that you are ready. Because those who trust what leaves are already prepared to receive what's coming. Your sensitivity deepens. You no longer tolerate the superficial, the artificial, or anything born from fear. You begin to crave truth, realness. You seek connections that are rooted, not convenient. You long for silences that feel safe, not awkward. Your soul is no longer interested in distraction. It craves expansion. And this calling, it's not coincidence. It's not whim. It's response. Because the universe doesn't only hear your words, it listens to your frequency. When you shift what you carry inside, everything around you begins to shift as well. Even when nostalgia tries to pull you back to what you've released, a deeper part of you knows you can't return. Not because you don't want to, but because you don't fit anymore. You no longer betray yourself just to belong. You no longer force comfort where there is none. And that alone is an act of spiritual maturity. You're not giving up. You're growing up. You're not running away. You're recognizing that what is truly great cannot be built on what denies your truth. You are not just releasing. You are claiming. You are reclaiming the space that is yours by divine design. And then something else becomes clear. This entire unfolding has its own rhythm, far removed from your logical mind. There are days when you feel illuminated, aligned, and there are others where everything feels paused, unclear. You wonder why things seem stalled, why so much seems to be in limbo. But deep inside, you know, you're not stuck, you're being rewritten. Because when the universe is preparing something magnificent, it silences the noise. It slows down the chaos. Not as punishment, but so you can finally hear what's rising from your own depths. You don't react the way you used to. Your response to endings is no longer resistance. It's awareness. Even through the pain, you choose to let go with intention. You've come to understand that what is being deactivated in your life isn't being taken. It's being replaced by something that aligns more completely with who you truly are. And though you may not be able to describe it yet, you carry that quiet certainty with you. You've begun to live not from the surface, but from vibration. And anything that doesn't feel real simply falls away. What isn't sustained by the soul loses its power, and you no longer try to hold on to it. Because something within you, deeper than logic, older than memory, knows that every ending now is making room for a greater beginning. You cannot force this process. You can only honor it. And it is in that honoring that you become something sacred. You become space. Space for what is real. for what is vast, for what is truly in tune with who you are now. And this doesn't happen because you wished for it. It happens because you are ready to hold it. Because without even realizing, your soul already said yes, and the universe, in its invisible, perfect language, is already responding. The second sign: you begin to experience unexpected pauses, projects that come to a halt without warning, plans that get postponed without a clear reason. Paths that once seemed defined suddenly become uncertain and blurred. At first, it's frustrating. You feel like things are falling apart, or like you're doing something wrong. But over time, something inside you begins to shift. You stop interpreting the pause as a blockage or failure. Instead, you begin to see it for what it truly is: a signal, a moment of divine recalibration. You begin to understand that there is something sacred within stillness, something you cannot force, no matter how much effort or desire you pour into it. The universe, when preparing you for something truly significant, doesn't rush you. It doesn't push you to accelerate. Instead, it pauses you, not to stop you permanently, but to strengthen you deeply, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because the most profound growth often happens in the silence, in the stillness, in the waiting. This pause is not a delay. It is a sacred transition. And you, who have finally learned to stay present in that pause, are being restructured from the inside out. In the beginning, those periods of stagnation disturbed you. You felt like you were wasting time, like you had lost your direction, like maybe you had made a mistake somewhere along the way. But then, in the silence that stretched between what once was and what had yet to arrive, something started to become visible. Not a clear answer, not a defined path, but a new kind of stability, a peace that did not depend on circumstances, but emerged from within. This newfound stability wasn't something the world gave you. It was something your soul cultivated as it adjusted itself. Because when the universe prepares you for greatness, it doesn't merely offer you time, it reconfigures you completely. And to do that, it needs you to stop running. It requires you to be still long enough for all the pieces to align without you having to force them into place. During that pause, your perception starts to shift. You begin to see things you previously ignored. You start to hear your inner voice without interference, to recognize yourself without the noise of others' expectations. And even though that shift is subtle, almost invisible, it changes everything. You also come to understand a powerful truth. Not everything that stops is broken. Some processes need time to mature, quietly, beneath the surface. Just like roots grow in darkness before a plant breaks through the soil, some directions in life are realigning themselves in ways you cannot yet see. Not because you're off course, but because you are being gently, lovingly redirected towards something your mind cannot yet conceive. And in place of resistance, you choose to inhabit the pause. You make peace with the quiet. And right there, in that exact moment of surrender, the universe starts to open a new door for you. The pause acts like a cleansing force. It removes everything you are maintaining out of desperation or anxiety. It clears away what was sustained by urgency, by empty expectations, by restless striving. You stop acting just to fill a void. You stop moving out of fear of standing still. You learn to sit with yourself without distractions, and in doing so, you become something more, a clearer channel for what's meant for you. Because here's the truth: the universe does not deposit greatness into chaotic spaces. It entrusts it to those who have made a home within themselves. The more you surrender to the pause, the more clarity you receive, not in the form of dramatic revelations, but as a quiet knowing that roots itself in your decisions, as a deeper intuition, as a wisdom that doesn't come from thinking, but from feeling. And in that feeling, everything that once seemed stalled begins to make sense. This is not about passively waiting for something to happen. It's about realizing that you are what's about to happen. It's about becoming the very thing you were hoping would arrive. You begin to realize that this pause hasn't been isolating you. It's been preserving you. It's not that opportunities have stopped showing up, or that the right people aren't appearing, or that answers are being withheld. It's that you are being protected. Protected because what's on its way requires the clearest, truest, most refined version of you. You cannot hold on to something big while remaining in the same state that held on to the small. Expansion requires a shedding. It requires space. It requires stillness. And that stillness, though it may not always be comfortable, becomes a sanctuary, a sacred space where you stop defining yourself by what you do or what you achieve, and start valuing yourself simply for being. Even when nothing is happening on the outside, you discover you don't need to constantly produce to feel worthy. That progress doesn't have to be visible every day to be meaningful. That true growth often doesn't make noise, but it leaves a profound imprint on the soul. And that deep inner feeling, that quiet inner shift, is a sign of transformation, one that is silently but powerfully taking place. You begin to see that the pause is not an empty void. It is a place of gestation. Something is forming, not around you, but within you. Your perspective begins to change. You see time differently. You experience the moment differently. You stop reacting the way you used to. You stop fighting what no longer flows. You no longer measure your life based on visible movement. Now, you know that even what stands still is still working, still shaping, still guiding. In this stillness, you learn to distinguish what's urgent from what's true. You no longer leap at every impulse. You no longer allow the pressures of the world to dictate your pace. Something in you has slowed down, not out of weakness, but out of depth. And in that depth, you begin to resonate with what is truly yours. What is coming is not more of the same. It is something entirely different, because now you are different. And this is where the realization settles in fully. The pause was never about waiting. It was about preparation. You weren't being stopped. You were being tuned. Your soul was expanding, stretching, to be able to hold what's coming with courage, with clarity, and without fear. And that, even though it still hasn't fully manifested, already feels like a silent call inside you. A vibration that doesn't need to be explained. A knowing that doesn't come from logic, but from alignment. Something big is approaching, and this time, you are truly ready to receive it. The third sign is when you begin to notice that your sensitivity to the invisible is growing. You start perceiving things that used to slip right past your awareness. The energy of a place, the emotional state of a person, even if they don't say a word. You start picking up on subtle cues in your environment that tell you whether something is meant for you or not. And this isn't imagination or suggestion, it's refined perception. This heightened sensitivity isn't random, it's part of your preparation. The universe doesn't just give you something great and then leave you to figure it out on your own. It trains you to be able to hold, carry, and sustain it. That's why, before what you've been waiting for arrives, you go through a process of inner refinement. You are being shaped into someone who feels more deeply, who senses more clearly, who knows when to pause, not because the world tells you to, but because your soul does. Even when the world urges you to keep going, that inner whisper tells you to stop, to listen, to align. This new sensitivity wasn't something you consciously chose. It simply began to intensify on its own. Things you once tolerated now make you uncomfortable. What used to go unnoticed now echoes deeply within you. You feel it in conversations charged with energy, in places that feel misaligned, in decisions that don't sit right, often before your rational mind has even had a chance to catch up. At first, it may confuse you, but soon you begin to understand. It's not confusion, it's connection. You're starting to read reality from a different layer. You no longer see only what happens on the surface. You begin to feel what lies underneath. You sense the unspoken, the subtle vibrations, the truth behind the words. You notice what energy is communicating before any words are said. And yes, at times, this may make you feel isolated, but that too is part of the process. It's not because you're meant to disconnect from the world, but because you need clarity. You need to know what truly belongs to you and what doesn't. The universe is training you in the subtle realms, in a kind of intelligence that cannot be taught in books, but is remembered by the soul. This elevated sensitivity is not a weakness, it is a tool, because the greatness that is coming is not meant to passively belong to you. It is meant to move through you. And if you're not attuned, if you don't know how to listen, how to stop when something feels off, you might get lost in the noise. That's why now, more than ever, you feel everything so strongly. Not because you're more fragile, but because you're more awake. And with this increased sensitivity comes a new way to protect yourself. You no longer need lengthy explanations to walk away from something that feels incoherent. You no longer feel the need to justify your boundaries. You don't have to explain to the world why something doesn't resonate with you. You feel it, and that is enough. Your body has become an antenna, your soul a compass, and you are starting to trust. Even on the days when everything feels overwhelming, you know deep inside that none of this is a mistake. You're going through an internal expansion. That overwhelming openness is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of readiness. Because only someone who can feel deeply is capable of holding something truly meaningful. And you, who have silently sensed this transformation for a long time, are now being finely tuned to receive it. You're also beginning to notice that this new sensitivity not only helps you detect what's not meant for you, it powerfully connects you to what is. There are moments when you walk into a place and feel instant peace, without knowing why. Conversations that are brief but ignite something in your soul. Projects that have barely started, yet you feel their purpose vibrating through you. That kind of certainty doesn't come from your mind. It comes from a deeper part of you that is becoming clearer, sharper, more aligned. And this doesn't happen because you've learned more. It happens because you're less distracted, less conditioned, less disconnected from your essence. In this quiet preparation, the universe has been removing what numbed you, not as punishment, but as a way to bring you back to your center. Because only from that place can you truly recognize what is meant for you. You also start to realize that you can no longer tolerate almost half-truths, half-hearted connections, lukewarm decisions. They now feel unbearable. What once was mildly annoying is now impossible to ignore. But this isn't intolerance, it's clarity. Your soul has become too precise to pretend, too real to entertain what doesn't match the frequency of who you are now. And yes, that might hurt at times, but it's also protection. It's a sign. What's coming doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be authentic. And that's why the universe is refining your perception until you can only move toward what is in alignment. There is no more room for what doesn't resonate, no more space for what feeds your ego but leaves your soul starving. You're being refined for the real. And in the midst of that intensity, something else begins to arrive. A new kind of calm. Because when you finally stop forcing yourself to carry what doesn't vibrate with you, your energy begins to align and your life begins to breathe again. You, who used to doubt every instinct, now recognize a true yes the moment it appears. You know it without thinking. Your body confirms it. Your energy expands. There is no need to convince yourself anymore. And in that vulnerable yet grounded state, soft yet certain, you're being prepared, not to merely survive, not to just adapt, but to receive, hold, and channel something bigger than you, something that can only manifest through you. With this heightened sensitivity comes a deep honesty with yourself. You can no longer ignore your feelings. You can no longer remain silent when something within you says no. You can no longer stay in connections out of habit or in places where your energy shrinks. Because as the universe prepares you, it makes it impossible for you to keep betraying your own truth. And though this may lead you to make difficult choices, you begin to see that each thing you let go of is actually a powerful affirmation of what you are meant to carry forward. You begin to treat your energy as sacred, not because you fear others, but because you finally respect yourself. You've learned that not everything that vibrates near you deserves to stay. Not every closeness is true connection. And your sensitivity wasn't given to you to adapt to the noise. It was given to help you create spaces where calm, authenticity, and depth can exist without masks. That kind of clarity may push some people away, but it brings the essential ones closer. And you are no longer willing to negotiate what is essential. Even your silences carry more truth now. There are things you simply stop explaining. You no longer feel the need to justify your intuition. Those who feel it will understand. Those who don't need to. Because you are no longer trying to explain yourself from a place of lack. You are standing in your truth, in what you've begun to remember, that you are here for something greater, and that greater thing cannot be built on a smaller version of who you are. The most beautiful part of all this is that your sensitivity hasn't weakened you. It has brought you back to yourself. It has reconnected you with a depth that asks for no permission, seeks no approval, and needs no explanation. You are becoming a clear, open space where the great can dwell, not just to receive, but to manifest, not just to have, but to transform. Because the universe doesn't place the sacred just anywhere. It places it where it knows it will be cared for. It delivers it into the hands of those who have learned to hold themselves even in the darkness, to those who have felt so deeply that they can now carry the weight of truth without breaking. To those like you, who have come to understand that this sensitivity is not a limitation. It is the very language your soul uses when destiny is calling. The fourth sign reveals itself in a moment of quiet clarity, when you begin to feel, perhaps for the first time, that everything you've lived through, both the beautiful and the brutal, the moments that made sense and those that never did, all start to come together like scattered puzzle pieces, finally finding their place. It's as though something within you begins to whisper a truth you always carried, but could never quite articulate. That nothing happened without purpose, that the pain wasn't random, that the silence wasn't in vain. This isn't a mental understanding. It's not a conclusion your thoughts arrive at after long reflection. No, it's something deeper. It's an inner integration, an emotional and spiritual merging of all your past experiences. It feels like something clicking into place, not in your head, but in your chest, where emotions live. You suddenly start to feel why those moments of heartbreak occurred. You begin to sense why your soul chose paths that hurt, why you were led through long periods of stillness and emptiness. This inner alignment doesn't come with words or logical explanations. It comes as an expansion within you, a silent, powerful shift. You recall situations that once brought tears, and now, instead of pain, there is only gratitude. You revisit relationships that broke you and realize they gave you the clarity you didn't even know you were missing. You look at the pauses, the closed doors, the dead ends, not with bitterness, but with understanding. Not because your mind has figured them out, but because your soul no longer resists them. Nothing that happened was a punishment. It was all preparation. You realize that the universe was never working against you. Even in your darkest moments, even when you were drowning in despair and felt utterly alone, there was something, an invisible force, protecting you, guiding you, redirecting you, cutting the cords you didn't yet have the strength to cut, letting go of what no longer served you, even when you tried to hold on. And now, from this new place of awareness, you see that what you thought was loss was really sacred redirection. This inner union with your past changes everything. You no longer carry your story as a burden. You honor it as a sacred map. Every experience that broke you also taught you how to rebuild with more depth, more wisdom, more soul. Every goodbye created space for something truer to enter. Every silence that once filled you with rage or confusion is now the echo of a lesson that prepared you for the weight and beauty of what you're finally able to hold. What you're feeling now isn't nostalgia. It's alignment, a wordless kind of gratitude that sneaks in softly and changes the way you breathe. You no longer feel the urge to relive your past, to rewrite the script, or question your choices. You don't need to learn through pain anymore. You're stepping into a different chapter, one where your past transforms into wisdom, not weight. One where each scar on your heart becomes proof of your inner strength. Where the chaos that once disoriented you now reveals a hidden order. And that shift, subtle yet profound, is nothing short of transformation. Because when you stop wishing you could go back and change something, anything, it's a sign that you've reached a level of inner integration where your soul is finally ready for what's next. Great things don't arrive when everything is perfect. They arrive when you are at peace with imperfection, when you no longer run from the path that brought you here, but instead, you bless it. You've stopped waiting with anxiety. Now, you wait with presence. And that quiet, conscious waiting is a frequency, a vibration. The universe doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to your vibration, your inner state of being. And without even realizing it, you've already begun to vibrate in tune with what's on its way to you. You've also started to look at yourself through a new lens. You no longer judge yourself for who you were in earlier seasons of your life. You no longer replay your choices or torture yourself with what-ifs. Something within you has softened, not out of resignation, but out of spiritual maturity. And that softness cannot be forced. It's a sacred sign that your soul has taken a leap. Because to understand the purpose behind what you've lived is not to justify it. It's to embrace it with love. And that's what you're doing now. This integration shows up in your inner voice, in how gently you speak to yourself in moments of silence, in how you no longer pressure yourself to prove anything to anyone. You've stopped sprinting to get ahead. Now you walk intentionally and fully present, simply to inhabit the moment. You've let go of chasing ideal versions of yourself. You no longer carry other people's expectations as if they were your own. You are releasing weight, not because you are weak, but because you finally understand that your soul doesn't need to carry everything in order to move forward. And in this new lightness, something else appears: clarity. Because when you stop fighting against your own journey, the signs become visible. The answers you once searched for outside of yourself now rise from within. The questions no longer torment you, not because they've all been answered, but because they no longer matter in the same way. And you, who once lived layered beneath so many masks, so much confusion, are beginning to peel everything back and hold on to only what's essential. Every phase that once felt chaotic now reveals itself as an exact movement of your soul. Every loss, a divine opening. Every ending, a sacred preparation. And what once hurt now empowers you. Not because the pain was beautiful, but because you made it meaningful. Because you chose growth over bitterness. And that choice, that fidelity to your own becoming in the middle of chaos, is the clearest sign of all. Because what's coming isn't just arriving by destiny. It's arriving because you're now strong enough to hold it without it breaking you. Because you can now receive it without shrinking under its weight. Because you no longer crave it from a place of emptiness. You recognize it as the natural result of someone who has made space within their soul. And you, without even noticing, have already made that space, not through sacrifice, but through alignment, through coherence, through stillness, through that unshakable certainty that doesn't need form or words, but pulses through your being and tells you, now you are truly ready. And the fifth sign is when, without really knowing how or why, you begin to vibrate differently. You can't quite explain it. Nothing major has shifted on the outside. Your job might still be the same. Your relationships, your routine, your daily life. They all look quite similar. But deep inside, you feel it. Something has shifted. A subtle, yet profound change in your energy has taken place. You're not trying harder. You're not forcing anything. Yet, there's this undeniable sense that you're standing in a new frequency. You begin to notice that the way you perceive life has changed. Your presence is more grounded, your thoughts are more clear, and your ability to connect with others and with yourself feels deeper. It's as if something has awakened within you. You're no longer living life from the same lens. Even though your external world hasn't caught up yet, even though the people around you might not see the difference, you know you're ready. Because it's not the world that validates this transformation. It's not the circumstances or the people around you who confirm that you've made the leap. It's your inner frequency, your internal vibration, that already carries the evidence of your evolution. You can feel it pulsing in your chest, resonating in your choices, speaking through your intuition. And as that vibration rises, something powerful begins to happen. You start attracting new experiences. People you've never met before suddenly appear, drawn to the energy you're emitting. Places, opportunities, and encounters that feel aligned start flowing into your life. But this isn't happening because you're desperately searching. You're not chasing it. You're not grasping. You're simply no longer in resonance with what once was. The mismatch between who you are becoming and what you once tolerated is becoming impossible to ignore. The universe, in its quiet wisdom, has recalibrated your energy, not as a random shift, but as a deliberate preparation. You are being prepared for a life that is more authentic, more expansive, more aligned with the truth of who you've always been deep within. This new vibration of yours isn't always visible to the naked eye, but it's undeniably felt. You feel it every morning when you wake up, and there's less heaviness in your chest, more presence in your body. You feel it in your decisions, how you now choose what nourishes you without guilt or over-explaining, how you can no longer tolerate what used to drain you, how you now breathe deeper, slower, more fully, not because life is perfect, but because you found your center. You're no longer operating from urgency. You're no longer seeking validation, no longer trying to prove your worth to anyone. You simply embody it. You're becoming more attuned to how you feel and less preoccupied with how others perceive you. And that subtle inner shift, that quiet revolution within, changes everything. Because when your vibration rises, your reality responds. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but always inevitably. You begin to witness synchronicities that once went unnoticed, encounters that feel divinely orchestrated, people who speak your soul's language, even if you've never met them before, ideas that land with a force that doesn't come from your mind, but from your vibration. And you're no longer surprised, because now you know it's not magic, it's alignment. You're seeing on the outside what you've long been cultivating within. You've cleared so much. You've let go of so much. You've chosen stillness over noise again and again. And now the universe is responding, not as a reward, but as a reflection. Your presence is changing too. You feel it in how others respond to you. Some open up around you without even knowing why. Others quietly drift away, and you don't take it personally anymore. You understand that when your energy shifts, everything that no longer resonates must find its proper place. It's not loss, it's alignment. It's not rejection, it's vibrational clarity. And you no longer resist it. You're no longer available for what depletes you. You're now choosing to stay where you are nourished. You're no longer settling for halfway love, halfway commitment, halfway presence. You no longer give your time out of obligation. You're stepping into a new way of living, a quieter yet infinitely more powerful way, because your vibration is no longer begging, it's inviting, it's summoning what's meant for you. And the most beautiful part is, you're not waiting for something big to happen in order to feel whole. You already feel it now. You're not looking to be completed by what's to come. What's coming is not arriving to fill a void. It's coming to expand a fullness that you've already recognized within. And when that becomes your truth, you know you're ready. Because the greatness that's arriving doesn't impose itself. It meets you where you are. And you are already vibrating in alignment. When the universe prepares you for something extraordinary, it doesn't do it through noise or promises. It doesn't send loud declarations or fireworks. It prepares you with silence that transforms, with pauses that rearrange, with subtle signs that only the soul can decode. And you, who have walked through so many phases, who have remained true to your essence despite everything, are now receiving what was always meant for you. not because you chased it, but because you became it. You don't need to understand every step. Just remember, you are not being delayed. You are being refined. You are not wasting time. You are making space. And what's on its way will not arrive through panic or pressure. It will come through truth, through alignment. And without even realizing it, you're already vibrating in that truth. If this message resonated with you, if you felt something awaken inside you with every word, it's because what's coming is already near. You don't need to strive for it. Just stay open, stay grounded, stay aligned. And if you wish to keep walking this path hand in hand with messages like this one, this space will be here for you. Because here, we don't just speak. We remember. We remember who we are, what we came for, and what's always been within us, waiting for the moment we were ready to see it. Your soul already knows the way. It just needed to hear it. You're not here by accident. Something deep inside you led you to this exact moment, to this very video. And once you finish watching it, you'll begin to understand why. Maybe lately you've felt overwhelmed, like your life is spinning into chaos, filled with uncertainty and challenges that seem to have no purpose or logic. But what if I told you that all of this might actually be the clearest sign that you're about to step into the most powerful, beautiful, and meaningful chapter of your life? What many people don't realize is that the universe always whispers before it shouts. It sends signs, nudges, and subtle signals before a massive shift occurs. The real tragedy is that most people never recognize these signals for what they are. They misinterpret them as bad luck, as misfortune, and they give up just before their breakthrough. But not you. You're here, and that already means you're paying attention. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 of the most powerful signs that your life is on the verge of a profound transformation. And if you find yourself resonating with even 3 of them, prepare yourself, because a new reality is already unfolding. Let's start with the first sign. You begin questioning everything you thought you knew about life. If recently you've caught yourself reflecting on your beliefs, your values, your goals, or even your sense of purpose, it's not by chance. It's because something deep within you has already begun to shift. This internal transformation may not be visible on the surface yet, but it's very real. It's as if the old mental structures you once relied on are starting to crumble. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but that discomfort is sacred. It means you're waking up to a new version of yourself. The universe is inviting you to re-examine everything you've ever taken for granted, questioning your reality, your relationships, your direction. This isn't a crisis. It's an awakening. It's the universe urging you to dismantle the illusions you've been living under so you can open the door to something far greater than you've ever imagined. This shift in perspective is necessary for your evolution. It's life, showing you that your mind is ready to expand, to embrace new ideas, and to step into a future that's aligned with your higher self. These questions: who am I really? What do I truly want? Am I living a life that honors my soul's calling? Are not just philosophical ponderings. They are portals. And once you step through them, there's no going back. Suddenly, the world feels unfamiliar. Things that once made perfect sense start to lose their meaning. Certainties vanish. And while that may feel like losing your footing, it's actually you finding your path. This disorientation is the universe's way of clearing the path, of making space for the real you to emerge, free from the old roles, expectations, and stories that no longer fit. It's like a spiritual cleansing, a death of the false self, so the authentic self can be born. The universe, in its wisdom, begins to strip away the masks, the lies, the outdated identities, and what remains is raw, honest, and real. And even though the process feels like chaos, it's actually creation. You are being rebuilt, stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the truth of who you really are. Remember this: questioning is not a detour. It's the beginning of the journey. You're not losing your way. You're finally starting to see it. And yes, it's scary when the familiar falls apart. But that falling apart is what makes space for something better. You're not broken. You're breaking free. And it's not just your beliefs that are being challenged. You may notice that your relationships, your habits, and even your daily routines are shifting. People who no longer align with your energy begin to fade away. Circumstances that once brought comfort may now feel suffocating. That's because you're shedding everything that doesn't resonate with your new frequency. Think of this as an internal detox, a filter that allows only what nourishes your soul to stay and releases everything else. And yes, that means letting go of comfort zones, of familiar pain, of the illusion of control. It's hard because these things may have once felt like parts of your identity, but they're not who you are. They were just tools for a different phase of your life. And what comes after? That's the magic. On the other side of this upheaval is a new version of you, more resilient, more conscious, and more aligned with your deepest truth. You'll begin to sense it, a subtle but powerful feeling, a mixture of fear and excitement, as if something big, something extraordinary is about to happen. And that feeling, that's not a coincidence. That's your intuition speaking. It's the sign that your consciousness is expanding, that you're dissolving the limitations you once placed on yourself. And as those internal walls begin to fall, something beautiful starts to grow. New dreams, new purpose, new energy. It's like pulling weeds from a garden to make room for vibrant, blossoming life. And here's where the magic truly unfolds. You'll start to receive answers, but not in the way you expect. They might come in the form of chance encounters, synchronistic events, a stranger's words, or a book that mysteriously finds its way into your hands. These moments, seemingly random, carry messages tailored specifically for you. Even if you don't have all the answers yet, you'll feel it. You're on the right path. Because the very act of questioning is transformation in motion. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. The kind of wisdom that emerges when you stop pretending and start listening. Listening to yourself, to your soul, to the universe. And as you continue to lean into this process, you'll notice the external world beginning to reflect your inner shifts. That's the beauty of alignment. Your reality begins to change, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You've raised your frequency. You've opened your eyes. You've reclaimed your power. So don't fear the questions. Welcome them. Embrace the uncertainty. Allow yourself to feel the discomfort, because it means you're growing. And every great transformation begins this way, with confusion, with doubt, with a sense of falling apart. But what you're really doing is falling into place. And when you finally surrender to this process, you'll start seeing the signs the universe has been sending you all along. They've always been there, waiting for you to be ready. And now, you are. The second sign. You begin to feel a growing disconnection from your past. One of the clearest and most powerful indicators that you're on the verge of entering a new chapter in your life. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual, subtle shift that begins deep within you, often so quietly that you don't even notice it at first. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the things that once excited you, that motivated you, that filled you with purpose and energy, they begin to lose their power over you. Maybe you've realized that the hobbies, the conversations, or the routines that once brought you joy now feel hollow. It's as if you're looking at the same world, but through different eyes. Eyes that no longer light up at the same sights, ears that no longer respond to the same sounds. The people you once felt deeply connected to, the places that once felt like home, now seem distant, almost foreign. You begin to notice that the emotions tied to those experiences have faded, and in their place is a quiet sense of detachment. This shift is not random. It's not a fleeting mood or a phase that will pass with time. It's something far deeper, far more profound. It is your soul, gently but firmly, nudging you forward. It's telling you that you've outgrown certain moments, certain relationships, certain versions of yourself. Your perception of life is evolving, and as that perception changes, so too do your goals, your desires, your values, and your connections. And suddenly, the things that once formed the foundation of your identity no longer feel like they belong to you. They feel like echoes of a life you once lived, shadows of a self you no longer are. It's a confusing experience. You don't always know where you're going or what you're supposed to become, but you know with certainty that you can't go back. You can't keep pretending that the old life fits the new version of you. It simply doesn't. Your previous routines, the job that once defined your worth, the social circles you used to feel part of, even the thoughts that guided your day-to-day life, these all begin to unravel. And yes, this unraveling can be deeply unsettling. It can feel like loss, but at the same time, it is one of the strongest signs of personal transformation. It's your inner being making space. It's you shedding your old skin so that something far more aligned with your true essence can emerge. Letting go of the familiar is never easy. There's a kind of mourning that happens when you release parts of your identity that once felt permanent. But this disconnection you're experiencing is not meant to punish you. It's meant to prepare you. It is making room for what's next. Think of it as a clearing in the forest, freshly opened by time and change, ready to receive new life. What's coming may not be visible yet, but it's growing, silently, just beneath the surface. The loss of interest in your past is a sacred signal from the universe, one that tells you, even if you don't yet understand, that something new is on its way. This isn't about abandoning everything you've known. It's about unbinding yourself from the things that have fulfilled their purpose. It's about loosening the grip on attachments that no longer support your growth. You're entering a time in your life where you're being called to release. Release the roles you've played, the patterns you've repeated, and the masks you've worn. You're being invited to step into a life that reflects who you are becoming, not who you once were. This transformation doesn't always make sense. It may feel uncertain. It may feel like the ground is shifting beneath you. But within that uncertainty lies the promise of something beautiful: expansion, rebirth, and the chance to rediscover yourself in ways you never imagined possible. The feeling of disconnection is just the beginning. Beneath it lies a cascade of internal changes. You begin to notice that your beliefs are evolving, especially the limiting ones you never questioned before. That old version of yourself, the one who accepted certain truths, lived according to external expectations, followed the crowd, starts to fade. You begin to question things you once took for granted. Maybe you start to look inward more often, finding that the world outside no longer holds all the answers. Maybe you feel that your old structures are crumbling, not in a way that destroys you, but in a way that liberates you. You might even struggle to define who you are in this new space. But despite that uncertainty, one thing is crystal clear. You're not the same person anymore. You're evolving, you're expanding, and that old skin no longer fits. There is a burning desire within you to be reborn, to step into a version of yourself that is bolder, freer, and more authentic. You may not know yet what that version looks like, but you can feel it calling to you. As this sense of disconnection deepens, fear can creep in. Fear of letting go, fear of losing what's familiar, fear of stepping into the unknown. But hand in hand with that fear comes liberation. There is freedom in no longer needing to be who you used to be. There is strength in releasing what no longer supports your highest path. That empty space you feel inside, it's not emptiness at all. It's potential. It's the womb of new beginnings. It's the signal that something far more aligned with your soul is about to emerge. And yes, it may be uncomfortable. Growth often is. But that discomfort is the gateway to clarity. And with time, clarity comes. You stop looking outside yourself for guidance. You stop relying on others to define your path. Instead, you turn inward. You begin to trust your inner wisdom, your intuition, your heart, your soul. The noise of the world starts to fade, and in its place rises a steady, quiet voice within you. That voice becomes your compass. It becomes your truth. You stop clinging to the past. You stop trying to revive the old. Instead, you open yourself to possibility. You allow yourself to grow into someone new. Every day brings you closer to a more honest version of who you really are. Not the version molded by fear or obligation or expectation, but the version that has always been waiting for you beneath the surface. So if you find yourself drifting away from who you once were, if your old life no longer fits, if the people, habits, and dreams that once felt essential now feel distant, know this: your soul is guiding you. It's leading you to a new beginning. And no, disconnection is not the end. It is the quiet, sacred beginning of the transformation you were always meant to experience. The real journey is just beginning. Third sign, you find yourself questioning what you once thought was important. Have you ever noticed that what used to feel essential no carries the same weight anymore? It's as if you're suddenly seeing life from a completely different angle. Things that once worried you seem to lose their grip. Material goals, other people's opinions, and social expectations begin to fade in the presence of something far more meaningful. You start questioning what truly matters to you. Your career, money, fame, they all seem like small pieces of a much bigger picture you couldn't quite see before. You begin to realize that the true meaning of life isn't about meeting society's standards, but about living in alignment with what genuinely resonates within you. It's like a filter has fallen away, allowing you to see past the surface and into the essence of who you are. This inner questioning isn't always easy. It can stir up uncertainty, even make you feel lost amid a sea of conflicting ideas. But that very space of not knowing is fertile ground for personal growth. That's the place where new answers begin to surface, answers that come from within, not from outside voices. life starts revealing to you that fulfillment doesn't come from accumulating things, but from the experiences that enrich your soul and the relationships that nourish your spirit. This questioning can even spark a complete re-evaluation of your purpose. Why are you here? What do you truly want to experience? The answers don't always come instantly, but what's certain is that you're beginning to open up to new possibilities. What once felt indispensable is losing its power, making way for new interests, new passions, and a deeper longing to connect with what truly matters. This is a clear sign that you're preparing for a radical transformation. The universe is guiding you toward what truly fulfills you, toward your authentic path. And although it may all feel confusing at first, this is actually the doorway to a more conscious life, one aligned with your purest essence. This shift in perspective usually happens gradually, but once it begins, you realize it can no longer be ignored. You start to notice that the things that used to give you a sense of security now feel hollow. You no longer feel the need to follow the flow of what society defines as success. It's as if a new energy is taking hold of you, pulling you toward a more authentic life, one that's less influenced by external expectations. This process isn't just about rejecting the old, it's about allowing the new to enter. The passions and interests you may have set aside are suddenly reclaiming your attention. Maybe you're rediscovering old activities you had forgotten, or even exploring new areas you never thought to consider. You no longer care about fitting into a system or following a well-worn path. Instead, you're seeking a road that reflects your true values, your real purpose, the one only you can define. This questioning may also come with a temporary sense of loneliness. At first, you might feel disconnected from old friends or your usual social circle. It's a natural part of distancing yourself from external expectations in order to find your inner truth. But don't be afraid. It's only temporary. That loneliness becomes the space where self-awareness can grow, and over time, you'll start attracting people who share your new vision, people who resonate with your evolving worldview. It's like experiencing a reset. What no longer serves you starts to fade, and in its place, a renewed energy connects you with what genuinely matters. This process of questioning isn't a crisis, it's an awakening that prepares you for something bigger, deeper, and more aligned with your purpose. And although the journey toward that discovery might seem uncertain at first, you'll come to understand that it's exactly what you needed to become the best version of yourself. Fourth sign. You feel more connected to your intuition than ever before. It's a fascinating phenomenon that arises when you're on the brink of making a major leap in your life. It's as if a new kind of inner clarity gets activated within you. Suddenly, life begins to make more sense, as if everything carries a deeper meaning, and every choice feels more natural. What once felt uncertain now becomes obvious. You're no longer lost in the chaos of your thoughts. Something within starts guiding you, showing you which direction to take. Intuition is that inner voice, that gut feeling that tells you what to do even without needing all the answers or logical explanations. It's the sense of knowing that something is aligned with your true self, even if you can't explain why. The key lies in learning to trust that inner wisdom. As you begin to do so, you'll notice that making decisions becomes easier because you're acting from a deeper place, one that's more connected to who you truly are. This awakening of intuition isn't something that happens overnight. It often starts with small signs, like a hunch that leads you to take a different path, or a wave of calm that embraces you during uncertain moments. At first, it might be hard to recognize, especially since the noise of everyday life tends to drown out that inner voice. But as you start giving it space and begin listening more closely, you'll see how it grows stronger and clearer. Intuition can show up in various forms, sometimes as a physical sensation in the body, other times as a thought that appears out of nowhere, or even as an unexplainable certainty about a person or situation. As you grow more attuned to it, you'll begin to realize that your choices are no longer purely rational. They come from a deeper knowing that's more in tune with your essence. It won't matter if you don't fully understand why something draws you in or pushes you away, because that feeling of certainty is the beginning of a powerful transformation that's about to unfold. As you continue nurturing this connection with your intuition, you'll start noticing that events which once seemed random or messy now have a pattern, as if the pieces of a puzzle are finally fitting together. Your life starts flowing more naturally, more smoothly, because you feel, in some unexplainable way, that you're in the right place, at the right time, doing exactly what you're meant to do. You no longer feel the urge to overanalyze every step, because you trust that your intuition is guiding you toward the right path. This awakening also allows you to notice things that once went unseen. You'll be able to read between the lines, sense the energy of people and situations, and grasp more deeply what's truly happening around you. Sometimes it's not about what's being said, but what's being felt. And now, you'll be much more open to those subtle vibrations. The most amazing part about this sign is that the more you trust your intuition, the more you begin to feel a deep sense of peace and security that you never knew before. Even if you don't have all the answers, even if the future is still a mystery, that strong feeling of being aligned with your purpose will be so powerful, nothing will be able to pull you off your path. Fear and doubt begin to lose their grip because your decisions no longer come from a place of fear, but from a deep understanding of yourself and the universe around you. This marks the beginning of a phase of self-discovery and empowerment. As you continue learning to listen to your intuition, you'll notice that the choices you make bring you closer to your true essence. Life starts to flow with a grace you never imagined, simply because you're now aligned with the natural rhythm of your being. Yes, you feel more drawn to the idea of personal growth. As this new chapter unfolds, you notice your mind opening wider than ever before. You're no longer content with what you once knew, nor with the version of yourself you used to accept. It feels as if a profound desire for personal expansion is rising from within. You no longer want to just exist, but to evolve, to improve, to push your limits. This inner drive for growth begins to guide your thoughts and actions. You find yourself constantly seeking new knowledge through books, courses, experiences, or even conversations with people who challenge the way you think. Knowledge, new skills, and transformative experiences draw you in like never before. It's as if you're hungry to learn more, to grow more, to become a more authentic and powerful version of yourself. This thirst for learning and self-discovery leads you to explore parts of yourself you never thought to uncover. From your hidden passions to your deepest limitations, you sense that there's no time to waste, that now is the time to embrace every opportunity to reinvent yourself. And it's not just about intellectual curiosity, it's about a longing to feel whole, to align more closely with your values and your purpose. This longing for growth also connects you to a transformative energy, a feeling that nothing is impossible if you are willing to evolve. You find yourself more open to releasing old limiting beliefs and welcoming new perspectives that move you forward. This personal development isn't just a desire, it's becoming an inner necessity, one that will reflect in every part of your life. What once seemed like a clear and defined path now feels uncertain, as though you need to discover new directions, new ways of thinking and acting. Personal growth is no longer just a choice, it's a priority. You're ready to embark on a journey that won't just change your outer world, it will reshape your inner self in ways you can't yet fully comprehend. You begin asking deeper questions. Who am I really? What is my purpose? What do I truly want to do with my life? This period of questioning is no accident. It's a clear sign that your mind is ready to expand, to break out of the comfort zone you once thought was enough. You're not just searching for answers. You're craving a transformation that elevates you to a higher level of awareness, where the ordinary begins to feel extraordinary. At the same time, you feel a pull toward healing. It's not only intellectual growth, it's also emotional and spiritual. You start confronting old wounds, limiting beliefs, and mental patterns that no longer serve you. You're ready to let them go, understanding that only by releasing the past can you make room for the new. And while this process can be challenging, it becomes one of the most exciting parts of your journey toward a more authentic self. Your life starts to revolve more around what truly matters. Growth, connection, authenticity. These begin to outweigh the small concerns and superficial distractions that once consumed your attention. You are now ready to move beyond the daily routine, to make meaningful changes that align with your deepest desires. You may start surrounding yourself with people who also feel this urge to grow and transform. People who challenge you to be better, think differently, and explore new ideas and perspectives. You're no longer seeking external validation or clinging to outdated beliefs. You're seeking a more meaningful and authentic life, a life that reflects the truest version of who you are. Sign number 6. You're feeling an intense desire to break free from toxic relationships and situations that no longer resonate with you. At this stage of your life, you're beginning to notice how certain people and circumstances that once felt like home now seem completely out of place. The things you used to tolerate, the behaviors you once excused, and the environments you once accepted as normal now feel heavy, draining, or simply disconnected from who you are becoming. You're not just outgrowing these dynamics, you're evolving past them. What once felt familiar and even comforting no longer aligns with your evolving values, your deeper sense of purpose, or your inner peace. You're undergoing a profound transformation, and that process is making it impossible to ignore the weight of what's been holding you back. It's like waking up from a long sleep and realizing that some of the people and patterns you kept close were never really helping you thrive. They were just keeping you in place. And now, something has shifted inside of you. There's a clarity emerging, a powerful awareness that you no longer want to remain stuck in connections that drain your energy or keep you in a state of emotional turbulence. It doesn't matter how long you've known someone, how much effort you've invested, or how familiar the situation feels. If it doesn't support your growth, it's time to let it go. You no longer fear the uncertainty that comes with change, because the discomfort of staying in a place that no longer feels right has become greater than the fear of the unknown. This urge to distance yourself from toxic energy isn't about rejecting others with resentment. It's about honoring yourself with love. It's not selfish to choose peace. to seek clarity, to protect your energy. It's self-respect. You're beginning to understand that in order to become the best version of yourself, you must first be willing to step away from what dims your light. You can't build a future that feels true to you if you're still anchored to the past through relationships that no longer reflect who you are. What's unfolding within you is a sacred act of self-liberation. It's the understanding that you deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift you, who challenge you in ways that promote your growth, who see you clearly and love you for who you truly are. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for authenticity, for realness, for mutual respect and emotional safety. And while the process of letting go can be painful because endings are never easy, it's also one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself. It's a declaration that your well-being matters, that your peace matters, that your time, your heart, your energy, they all matter. You no longer want to sacrifice those things for the sake of comfort or fear. You've realized that clinging to what's familiar isn't worth the cost of your personal evolution. As you release what no longer serves you, something beautiful begins to happen. You start attracting people and experiences that are in true alignment with your soul. New connections begin to blossom, ones that feel light, expansive, inspiring. You find yourself in the company of those who get you, who support your path, who encourage your dreams rather than belittle them. These are the relationships that add value to your life. They don't drain you, they fuel you. And slowly, you begin to rebuild. A new chapter begins, one filled with genuine bonds that replace the superficial ones. The kind of connections that don't just fill the space, but nurture your spirit. You stop settling for half-hearted relationships and begin welcoming the kind of love, whether in friendship, family, or romance, that sees you, hears you, and respects you. This is the sign that you're preparing for a new and extraordinary stage in your life, one where you are more in tune with who you truly are, one where peace is prioritized, where your heart is safe, and where your soul is finally free to grow, to love, and to live without restraint. This is more than just a shift. It's your rebirth. Sign number 7. You begin to feel a powerful disconnection from everything that no longer serves you. As you step into this new phase of your life, you start to notice that what once felt essential, meaningful, or even irreplaceable now carries far less weight. It's as if something deep within you has shifted. Your perspective is changing. Your energy is transforming. And what once seemed to define your world now begins to fade into the background. Relationships that used to feel vital may now feel strained or disconnected. Activities that once filled you with joy might now seem hollow or repetitive. Even familiar places, spots that once gave you comfort, might suddenly feel distant or unfamiliar. And no, this doesn't mean that your past was a mistake or that your choices were wrong. It simply means you're evolving. You're shedding layers of an identity that no longer fits. You're stepping into a more aligned version of yourself, and in doing so, certain pieces of your old life naturally begin to fall away. This disconnection might feel uncomfortable at first. There can be moments of confusion, sadness, or nostalgia. You might question yourself, why don't I enjoy this anymore? Or why do I feel so distant from people I used to love? And yet, amidst that discomfort, there's a subtle but undeniable feeling of freedom. It's like breathing fresh air after being in a closed room for too long. You may not understand everything that's happening, but something inside you knows. It's time to let go. You begin to notice that certain habits, routines, or even thought patterns no longer resonate with your current state of being. What once consumed your attention now barely moves you. Old fears lose their grip. Constant worries seem less urgent. And while this can bring a sense of loss, it also carries with it a profound sense of peace. There's a sacred silence that follows the letting go, an inner calm that wasn't there before. You're not just releasing the old, you're making room for the new. And this new is not just something external. It's a deeper alignment with who you truly are becoming. This isn't a sudden transformation. It unfolds slowly, almost quietly. Day by day, the shift deepens. You might wake up one morning and realize you no longer feel passionate about something that once defined your identity. Or you might find that conversations with certain people leave you drained rather than inspired. This isn't about betrayal. It's not about abandoning your past or rejecting the people in it. It's about honoring your evolution, recognizing that growth often means outgrowing. You're cultivating a more refined awareness of what truly matters. Your inner compass is recalibrating. You understand that in order to move forward, you must release what no longer nourishes your soul. It could be a job, a friendship, a belief system, or simply a version of yourself that no longer feels true. This process is sacred. It's part of your becoming. And while it may not always be easy, it is necessary. Remember, the universe has a unique way of guiding us, sometimes gently, sometimes abruptly, but always purposefully. If you're hearing these words right now, if they resonate even a little, trust that it's not by accident. You were meant to receive this message. Something within you is awakening. A deeper wisdom is rising to the surface. And if you follow it, if you trust this inner knowing, you are about to enter a chapter of your life where everything starts to make sense. What happens when you finally take control of your life with full awareness of these signs? What shifts when you stop clinging to what was and start welcoming what's meant to be? A powerful awakening awaits, one that has the potential to reshape everything you thought you knew. You're not just changing your circumstances, you're expanding your consciousness. You're aligning with a version of reality where peace, clarity, and authenticity are your new foundation. This is the beginning of something extraordinary. Stay curious, stay open. The journey ahead is not just about growth, it's about transformation. You're not alone on this path. And if you feel called to keep exploring your personal evolution, continue walking with us. There's so much more to uncover. We'll meet again soon, and together we'll keep growing, expanding, and stepping into the truth of who we really are.